I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation with my friend Chaz Wolfe, a serial entrepreneur. He has his own podcast, Driven to Win. It's a great resource that releases on Mondays. He runs Gathering the Kings mastermind groups, as well as he has several businesses in the Kansas City area. I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation and all of the insights that he has about business and the mistakes that he's made and things that he would do different. So here's my friend Chaz. Welcome to Market Mavericks. I'm Matthew Eford. Join me as I speak with leaders who are redefining industries in every corner of the market. From startups to established businesses, we'll uncover the strategies, challenges, and insights that drive success. Get ready to be inspired by the Mavericks who are shaping the future of business. Welcome, everybody, to Market Mavericks. I have my friend here with me, Chaz Wolfe. Chaz, I was on his podcast a couple of years ago, and he was one of the ones that encouraged me on this journey in the podcasting world. So, Chaz, I'm so excited to have you. His podcast now, Driven to Win, releases on Mondays. So if you're not currently following the show, please do. It's an excellent business-focused, leadership-focused business podcast that I know that you're going to enjoy. So, Chaz, those who may not know you, give us a little bit of an intro of who is Chaz, what kind of business is, because I know you're involved in several. Are you currently running?
Yeah, man, I appreciate the opportunity, Matthew, and just to encourage your listeners, yeah, if you want to check out Driven to Win, but don't skip out on the 5-star for Matthew. It's a big deal to start a podcast and to keep the momentum, and it's a big deal to be here. So thanks for the opportunity.
Of course.
As far as who is Chaz Wolfe, man, first off, there's a lot of ways that I can define that. You actually asked me ahead of time. You said that you got a faith show, you got a family show, you got a business show. And it's like, man, how do all those things get wrapped up into my identity? Because that's really, who I feel like I am. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm a serial entrepreneur. You mentioned that. I've got businesses in all different types of industries. I've been married for 17 years. I'm a father of 4. I'm a son of the Most High, the created or the
Amen.
creator of all things, heaven and earth. And so I'm just a dude who has a little bit of a story, and hopefully will inspire some of your listeners here today. We can talk a lot about business, but man, those other elements really have played a big role in my life as well.
Sure. And I will be excited to have you back on and address some of those in the
Yeah.
themes with family and faith. So I appreciate you sharing about that. So, Chaz, tell folks who may not know, you did a podcast for over a year where you released an episode every single day. Gathering the Kings podcast, which is now Driven to Win. Talk to
Yeah.
us about that experience. What
Yeah.
was, why?
Yeah. Why would somebody do such a crazy thing? Yeah. Well, first off, man, we're just now close to 500 episodes, and we're right at the 3-year mark. So I think for a minute there was no target in mind of like do one every single day. It wasn't like that at all. When we launched, we just wanted to interview cool people, probably similar to what your
Yeah.
thoughts are. Like, I just
Yeah.
want to have great conversations, and look, I know in the world of business that the more people that I meet, the more high quality, high value, equal exchange type people that I meet, good things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And just like when we had you, Matthew, on the show, it wasn't like a with any intention, really. We got on the show, we actually ended up praying for each other, and then did the show, and then
Yeah.
all this, and have had stayed in contact since then. But some of those shows have turned into clients. Some of those shows have turned into, friends. Some of those shows have turned into me getting on their shows or me flying to have lunch or dinner with some of these folks. It's just been pretty incredible. And so when I knew that ahead of time, to answer your question,
Okay.
but I didn't know how amazing it really would be. And so I just kept pressing into it. I just kept saying yes and over and over and over because I knew good things were happening. And the sales guy in me is like, keep the pipeline full, whatever the pipeline was. I didn't have
Sure.
this target like to sell certain people. I mean, obviously we've got a mastermind community, and a lot of those folks were like, hey, sounds pretty cool. I want to be part of that. But that wasn't like the intention necessarily. It was just to shake hands and meet amazing people. And so we just got really good at filling the pipeline. Let me just say it like that. I got an amazing team. And dude, at one point for probably almost 18 months, I was recording like 3 to 5 a day to keep up with the
Wow.
schedule of
Wow.
releasing one a day. It was really intense, but man, we had some, like I said, some incredible shows, and and just something that's turned into a lot of amazing things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So take us back to the beginning, not of the podcast, but of Chaz's entrepreneurial journey. What does
Yeah.
that beginning look like?
Well, the super beginning is me as a teenager, like it just snowed here in Kansas City. I would have been hustling down the street, bro.
Yeah.
Uh, I would have been shoveling driveways and mowing grass in the summer, and that was because one, I grew up single mom family, and
Okay.
I needed to do the thing that I needed to do in order to get the things I wanted. It was just that plain and simple. And then on top of that, watching my mom work constantly gave me a good picture of what work ethic is, and that if I wanted something, it was okay to go work for it and achieve and be able to have that equal exchange of providing value, earning money, and then going and getting the things, the material things at least that we needed. Um, but that turned into eventually in my early 20s, me purchasing an edible arrangements franchise. So I was the first official, I bought it for just a little over 400 grand. And,
Nice.
I left my six figure sales career at 24 years old. I'm not college educated, making a lot of money. And my family's kind of like, what are you doing? And I give up all that and kind of start my entrepreneur journey with the franchise. And I think we had a little chat about that too on the show when you were on mine. But I turned that from no locations, buying that first one. I was like 24, turning 25. 4 years later, I had 7 locations in three
Wow.
states,
Wow.
and was off to the run and races hard. That brand, Edible Arrangements, is a great brand, and I still have one of those today. But the Valentine's days and the Mother's Days, and
Yeah.
bro, it was
It's
so
real.
intense.
It's really busy in a short period of time.
Oh my gosh, yes. And it just it allowed me to create a lot of skills under, recruiting and systems and production and all kinds of things that I've learned over the 13 years of being a franchisee with them that, maybe not every franchisee learns. I mean, I think at some point, but when you got that many locations
Sure.
and that spread out of a territory, I was forced to think a little bit different
Yeah,
than I
sure.
was.
So we've got a lot of solopreneurs, small business owners, and really a lot of entrepreneurs
Yeah.
that are listening to part of our audience. So what advice would you have to them in terms of structure with systems? You mentioned systems.
Yeah.
We're both EOS guys, but talk to us about building out systems from a practical standpoint. What are some next steps that a small business owner can take?
Yeah, I think there's a why in the road, honestly, especially for a entrepreneur or an early entrepreneur. And that's a lot of thinking. There's a lot of thinking that goes on, and let me like put this stuff together. And I'm not saying that that's bad, because I like to think through things. I'm a pretty, thorough individual, and I like to kind of, well, if I do this, then what happens? And if that happens, then what happens? And I think in those ways. But really, for that person, they just need to do
Yeah.
less systems, less thinking, just go do. And kind of just how I just described with the podcast. I mean, you said, tell me about the first year of the podcast. And it was like, I just turned on the faucet, and I didn't just drip it. I like fire hose, like,
Yeah,
whoo,
sure.
and because I knew that I would figure it out, and recording a bunch of shows or taking on a bunch of clients in a business or figuring out how to serve. I mean, whatever you got to do. We did the same thing with our construction company. We launched a construction company in the first year where we're like 7 figures in the first 7 months, doing pretty big projects. I've never been on a construction project in my life, but I'm a business owner, right? So I'm creating systems and leads and this and all, hiring people. And the second year is like cleanup, because guess
Make a
what?
lot of mistakes. Yeah.
We made a lot of mistakes. We learned a bunch. Cool. Now let's get organized. Now let's create system. I
I
mean,
love
we've been
that.
on EOS, sure, but for that person that's listening right now that's thinking, I got to have everything in order. No, you don't. No, you don't. What you need more of is leads.
Yeah.
What you need more of is actions. What you need more of is obsession in the actions department to just, go drum up a bunch of stuff. And through the drumming up of a bunch of stuff, whether it's a new podcast or a new business, you start to actually have action to be able to take, because you already took action. Because I created a little bit of a mess, now I can go, okay, now I need a system. Now I need to get organized. Now I need to hire somebody. Fill
I
in the
love
blank.
that. Yeah, that's. I think that's excellent advice. It's paralysis by analysis, right? It's easier to
Yeah.
stay in the entrepreneur stage of I'm just going to work my 9 to 5. I'm going to always want to be an entrepreneur and not take that leap. but
Right.
I'm going to overanalyze it. Am I going to have enough money? Am I going to get enough leads? What's my work life structure going to be? Because balance is a myth. You and I have both said that for a long time. But it's this idea of uh, you think it through too much and you
Yeah.
don't make a step. You don't take an action. I love that. So talk to us about hiring. Obviously, you go across seven locations, 3 states. You start hiring a bunch of people. What advice would you have for a small business owner who's maybe hiring their first employee or they're hiring their 10th employee? What have you learned over your process of hiring folks?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing that you can do is use a hiring tool. We use the Predictive Index,
Okay.
which allows us to be able to have someone take a survey. It gives us their Predictive Index results, and it helps me understand certain things about them without having to even talk to them. And so if I'm hiring for, a bookkeeper, which I am right now, I'm hiring an in-house bookkeeper. What I'm not going to do is hire somebody who's not detailed.
Yeah.
Right now, I can find out pretty quickly through an interview if someone's detailed or not. But I can also not even waste my time at all with this person, have them take a survey, and then only the people that are detailed interview them.
Okay.
And so,
And so are
outside of
you paying? Are you paying for that?
yes, yeah, Predictive Index is a paid service,
Okay.
but it's super reasonable.
Okay. So
There's also
at
there's
what
also
point are you having an applicant fill that out prior to having an interview with you?
yeah. Now I'll say generally that you can do it ahead of time, but there's certain states that have certain regulations as far as
Sure.
discrimination and stuff like that. Even though I don't think that's not the point of what we're talking about. What we're talking about
Sure.
is putting people in the right seat on the
Yeah.
bus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if someone's not detailed, or if someone is, a social profile and they like collaboration in their work, I'm not going to hire them for a remote bookkeeper. Like,
Yeah.
shocker, I know, but it's going to be a terrible fit for them.
Yeah.
And so I actually see it as me being a good steward of this person that I'm hiring. And if I'm a king, truly, and I'm like, putting pieces together inside the kingdom, then I need to be a good steward of the resource. And so if this is another person and they have a family, and I'm taking all these things into account. And so this tool just helps me understand who they are, probably without having them to just like, give me a bunch of experience. Oh, of course, we do interview process, multiple interviews, all the fun stuff. But
Sure.
from like the initial look, before I even, I put up a job description, put up an ad, and they got to fill out the predictive index. And then what comes in, I'm looking for a specific, profile. And if I
So are
get a
you
profile,
paying? Are you paying per? I guess we're getting a little bit of the nitty gritty, but
yeah,
our posted jobs sometimes we get 500 applicants. Are you
right.
paying each one of them a per applicant process for the test, or is it an
Oh,
overarching with predictive
just an
insights?
overarching purchase. It's like
Gotcha.
a yearly membership type of thing.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. That's a
There's
great
there's
resource.
other sources, strength finders, and similar sources
Sure.
that you can pay per survey. So that might be a more applicable for somebody who's just getting started and they're only going to interview 10 people and that type of thing. But
Sure.
yeah, that that mindset right there of learn someone's personality, put them in the right seat on the bus because I've predetermined who's
Yeah.
going to be successful in this role on the
Yeah.
bus. That frame right there has been very, very good for me. And when I haven't operated in that, aka early on, or I've just been like, hey, we're in a hurry, just hire somebody, it just doesn't really ever work out.
Yeah.
And taking the extra time to just interview precisely is an absolute game changer.
I love that. Yeah, that what an excellent piece of advice. So talk to us about when you were with Edible Arrangements. Obviously, you said you're a serial entrepreneur. I know you have multiple businesses. You started Gathering the Kings, a mastermind group. What was the next business? What
Yeah.
was that next step for somebody who says, I have my existing business. I think I want to add either another service line or another business. What advice would you have in that arena?
Generally, don't do it. Let me explain. First off, most entrepreneurs think that they're serial entrepreneurs, meaning that they have come to a place in their business where they are excited about something new. Well, here's probably more likely the truth is that you're a certain profile, and that certain profile likes new things.
Yeah.
They like the shiny object. And so something has come across the table that you've gotten excited about. The other thing that you're doing, your business, has either A, become boring, or it's not hard anymore, or maybe it is hard and you don't know how to overcome the current pinch of your business right now. And so because you've discarded that to the side, it's easier to just go start something new. And I've seen this time and time and time again where we get really excited about the new thing. We've left this other thing thinking that it's good to go, that it's on autopilot now, because that's all that entrepreneurs talk about is that, "Oh, I've got everything on autopilot. It runs itself." No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Amen.
Okay? Take it from somebody who has done it and tried it. Okay. No, it doesn't. Here's what I'm saying though, is that it doesn't mean you can't have another business. It just means that in that moment when you're thinking about it, you should probably be asking yourself harder questions like, not necessarily, am I excited about this? Of course you're excited about that. But with the current business that you have, the one that's doing, 400,000 or 800,000 or even 2 million, how much bigger could it be if you just stayed right here? Because most likely what you've come up against is a bottleneck and you don't know how to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so that's where, whether it's a coach or a mastermind community or something can get you to the next level. And you can turn your $2 million business into an $8 million business, or an $8 million business into a $20 million business, because there's different things along the way that you need. And those can still be very exciting. They can be very new and fresh. But if I had known that earlier, I probably, I mean, edible arrangements was my business. For me, the dopamine hit was a new location and a new location and a new
Sure.
location. But even that in itself was challenging. It cost money. It was a little bit of shiny object syndrome, but that's the only way to really grow revenue in that model. For me, at some point, it was probably 7, 8 years in, I started looking at real estate. That was my second business.
Okay.
But even at that, I kept it like they were investments and I kept them on the side. Yes, I was probably more involved than the typical real estate investor who's just, giving money to a syndication or something. But I had people in place. I had managers all across all locations. I had a general manager. I had, there was actual systems in place, 7, 8 years worth. And then I started to look at something, something new.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so easy, especially as a salesman, right? You want to chase that next deal. You want to chase that next thing.
Yep.
As most entrepreneurs, we have ADD. It's just, we just love to just fly through. And
Yep.
so I love that you pointed that out, that it's so important for us to make sure that we're not just chasing a shiny object. So tell me about Gathering the Kings. I know a little bit about it, but tell the audience about it. What is Gathering the Kings? How did you start that? And really, where's that at right now?
Yeah, great. I appreciate the opportunity. So Gathering the Kings is a community for entrepreneurs. We're family oriented. We're down to earth. We're growth minded. And truthfully, I have found that those three things in a single human, it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
So family oriented, down to earth. That's probably the nuanced one where a lot of people, when they get successful, they kind of get a little, little edge, a little nose in the air, a little like that, like they're all something. And it's like, you know what? Not that that's like, okay, fine. You like to sit in first class now or whatever the scenario is. That's all good. But recognizing that there's more to life than things
Yeah.
is a grounded approach, right?
Yeah.
So family oriented, down to earth, and growth minded. And the growth minded, I've got a phrase that we created, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years ago, that is grateful but not done. And the people that fit best in our community are folks that are, like I said, kind of down to earth, but this grateful period where I can sit, I can be thankful, for what I have, the things that haven't gone so well. I mean, there's been some stuff where I've lost a lot of money, but it's taught me lessons, right? And I can be grateful in that moment, comma, not done. Like I know the top of the mountain's that way, bro. We're going. But right here in this moment, I've got the poise or the maturity to be like, you know what? I'm so thankful for my family or for this, or even the things that haven't gone well. And so that's who we facilitate for. And really I created that community because, I found myself along with many others kind of in that entrepreneur isolation. We look around and yeah, sure, I had some buddies, a couple that owned a business, but not really any that were doing life like me, making decisions in my business, in my marriage, in my health, in my faith, in my lifestyle like me. And people that could pull me forward, into the best next version of me. And okay, well, if I don't have that and you don't have that and you don't have that, we should make that available. And so that's really what it's turned into. And we do really cool stuff now that we didn't at the beginning. We do family vacations together and
Nice.
all kinds of fun stuff for kids success, success principles for kids, and we got stuff for the ladies and stuff for the gents, and all elements of life. It's really become a like a full family approach to winning in all areas. It's been fun.
I love that. And did the construction company, did that come out of the Gathering of the Kings? Did it come out of a podcast? Where did that, you said that's new. Where did that
Yeah.
come out of?
That came out of me recognizing opportunity, and we had started a part of my real estate businesses. We had started a flipping company, and in 22 the rates kind of got a little wonky, and we had always kind of talked about taking our resources and being able to do them on the residential side,
Okay.
and we just decided to pivot majorly at that time and do it full course, and so yeah, that just basically 2-ish years ago now, where we've been doing full-blown remodels, high-end bathrooms, basements, we've been doing projects for a long time, but
Sure.
but but it's totally different when you're in someone else's home while they're living there, and it's not a vacant flip, it's totally different. There's a whole experience.
So talk us
Dude.
through that pivot. Talk us through that process. I think it's an excellent thing for
Yeah.
entrepreneurs to hear that you have this vision. You get in, you're flipping homes. It's great. You're doing projects. You're renovating them. You come through COVID, rates are in the tank, and it's like, this is great. It's very cheap money.
Right.
Okay, rates come out into a way that no one saw or no
Yep.
one expected. Okay, you
Yep.
made this pivot. What talk us through the thought process behind that?
Yeah, I mean, when we first launched, even when we were just doing the flips, we had talked about at some point
Okay,
creating an arm where we would do remodel. So it wasn't like this brand new fresh idea, but we were not doing it at that time. And so to your point, kind of given the circumstances of the environment, we just decided that this would be the best way to move forward. And I mean, when rates changed as you just described that they did, what that did from like a business tactical perspective was that all the deals dried up.
yeah.
And there's still people doing flips and stuff like that, but there's just not as many opportunities. And I like to go fast, and so we just decided that would be a way to serve our model better. And so we just immediately switched over to generating leads around residential projects and figuring out everything along the way. It was amazing.
So, what advice would you have to somebody trying to generate leads?
You need a lot of them. I mean, there's all types of lead sources, third-party resources, or lead sources, sorry. Of course, your website, there's social media. I mean, literally, there's an endless supply. You might be hearing that going, well, wait a second, what do you mean? It just means you haven't done enough, you don't understand marketing, right?
Yeah,
So before you start like going into, lead generation or building your website out or anything specific, you just probably need to go read some marketing books or read how to generate leads in general, because how do salespeople do it? They don't even own a company. How do they prospect? That mindset of becoming a prospector or just generating leads all the time is more of the mindset that someone needs when they're getting launched, because you need a bunch, like I said, you need a bunch of leads, and that's like the lifeblood of the business.
yeah.
You've got to spend a lot more than you think, but that's what you need in order to fill the pipeline so you can close enough deals and then do the projects, and
Yeah.
it's always a give and take with that.
So, what you said were some books. You have any specifically that you recommend around marketing?
The marketing stuff, there's a podcast actually. I was just I'll pull it back up here. Give me 2 seconds. There's a marketing podcast that I listen to. It's called Marketing School by Neil Patel.
Okay.
That's a good one that they can listen to. There's all kinds of stuff. I mean, Russell Brunson has a pretty good one. As far as like prospecting though, there's a book called Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt
Okay.
that I'm a huge fan of his. I've taught his, kind of sales tactic stuff to my teams for a long time, but that book right there is the mindset that I was referencing of just, the golden hours, like you really got to go after it. It's not just like this thing that happens accidentally. Lead generation is very much an intentional thing. And I wouldn't do anything else in the business until I just had, you know, an overwhelming amount of leads, because then you have choices.
I love that. Yeah, that's excellent advice. So you've mentioned several times about your faith and your family, and as a dad, as a husband. We've talked about the work-life pull, right? Nothing's ever in balance. We choose to invest our time. What advice would you have to a small business owner who's trying to navigate that pull between time at work and time at home?
Yeah, good question. One is that the realization is that it doesn't exist, balance doesn't exist. But what I have found for me personally, that what does exist is obsession. And so for a long, long time, and my story will, I get to tell it like this now, but I was obsessed with business. And what the result of that was that my wife and my kids and my health and kind of everything else really took not just a backseat, but like the back seat.
Yeah,
And I wasn't a terrible dad. I wasn't a terrible husband, but nowhere near the potential that I have. And so I succeeded in business. And from the outside, everything looked amazing. I already shared some of my business successes with you, but on the inside, Julie's like, I kind of feel like I'm a single mom, which was like really hard to hear,
sure.
because it's not like I wasn't there,
Yeah,
but in fact, Forbes advisor, I've done quite a bit of research on this recently, but they say that the number one reason for divorce, especially among entrepreneurs, is lack of family support. And
wow,
it's my story to a T. It's me going all in. I was so obsessed and providing, and I thought if I just provide the security and the provision and the money, that everything else kind of falls into place. And that's not true.
sure.
In fact, actually, what else isn't true is that I can only do this one obsession. Most entrepreneurs think that, well, I have to choose one or the other. I got to, if I'm going to be really successful in business, I can't be obsessed with my wife or my kids or my health or my faith or whatever. And that part right there is also not true at all. And so for me, lowering my obsession with business wasn't the answer. It was actually raising my obsession with my wife, raising my obsession with my kids, raising my obsession with my health, because you can. People do what they want to do. Period. Like that's a phrase I'll always, say
Yeah,
that I learned a long time ago when I was in my 20s, but people do what they want to do. And if I want to be successful, or as we say in GTK, win in all areas, live the exceptional life, I will just choose to do intentionally the things that are necessary in my marriage, in my business, with my kids, in my health. I'm not going to not do those things because I've already predetermined that they're what
yeah,
I need to do in order to be successful.
yeah. And really, I mean, it's obviously was very hard to hear from Julie, but that's what a gift that she gave you to give you that information instead of
100%.
becoming a single mom. That she gave you that information to say, "Hey, Chaz, let's talk. This is a red flag, and I'm throwing this flag up, and you better see this, or
Yeah.
some changes are coming." I love that, and I love that you take that perspective of I can be obsessed, and being obsessed is not a bad thing, and I'm
Yeah.
going to choose to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to know my priorities. I'm going to pick those. So, what advice would you give to somebody who is seeking to rearrange their priorities, maybe, or what in kind of a couple of those areas, maybe as a dad and as a husband, what are a couple of priorities that you added to your list when you're becoming not less obsessed with your business, but more obsessed in those two areas?
Yeah, I would say probably more than what can you add or take away, it would be, and I'll give you some of that here in a second, but it would be how are you organizing time to begin with?
Okay.
And it's crazy to me in 2025 that someone doesn't operate on a calendar,
Yeah.
but there are there are people
Oh yeah,
who
we
don't
get them.
operate on a calendar. So first off, we have to first determine, do you have a calendar? Because I can't even talk to you about whether how to balance quote unquote time between your business and your family if you don't even have a calendar. You don't even value your time if you don't have a calendar.
Yeah.
So I can't even talk to you. Number one, go get a calendar, operate on a calendar. Number two, then inserts the younger Chaz. I was on a calendar. I operated on a calendar, but nothing about my family was in the calendar. Nothing about my health was in the calendar, right? And if the calendar ultimately what it's become is that it tells me what to do, right? I get to tell the calendar on Sunday or at the beginning of the quarter or at the beginning of the year what's important to me, so that I get to put into the calendar what is important because we've predetermined. Okay, great. So when I wake up today or yesterday, when I'm looking at today, I look and go, oh, okay, I get to go be on a podcast with Matthew today because I've predetermined that it's important for me to be able to do that. Just like soon as I get off this call with you here in 10 minutes, guess what? I'm going to go sledding with my kids.
Yeah.
Because it snowed yesterday, and I've already had 2 opportunities to have 2 more calls here today, and I sorry, I'm going to be sledding with the kids. It's got to go in the calendar.
Yeah, I love that. That is such a gift that we Hannah and I gave each other, was a shared calendar, and it's this idea of, okay, we're going to put the boys' things on it, we're going to put us as a couple our things on it, each individual. It is. We go over it on Sundays. You mentioned that we're recording this episode on Monday. Hannah and I sit down on Sunday and we go over the week. We say, hey, what's coming up? And really that came from a mastermind group that I'm a part of called Iron Forums. It's a Christian business owner group here in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And we asked our wives the question, how would you rate our marriage on a 1 to 10 over the last month? And just being real candid, Hannah gave me like a super low score one month. And I was just floored. And like, we have a great relationship. We've been together almost 15 years now. And we have a really solid marriage. And she said, I just feel like we're missing each other. And I was like, oh, we got to get back to our Sunday meeting. We regroup and we talk about our calendar. And we can be obsessed about making sure that we're connected as a family, as a couple, and within the business.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you one more thing that you guys can ask each other. Obviously the listener can do this as well. But in that Sunday meeting, 2 simple questions that you and your wife, of course, my wife and I do this. But how did I show up for you this week? And how could I show up better for you this week? Or how could I have showed up better for you? And very similar to the 1 to 10 scale, it opens up conversation. But specifically for that week, because it's kind of tough to go back a month, as far as tactically what's happened. But when I asked Julie, how have I shown up for you this week? She thinks about the week, and it gives her the opportunity to think of, maybe 1, 2, 3 things that I did that she appreciates, or things that maybe I took care of, or whatever the scenario was. And it gives her the chance to appreciate me. And I have a good friend of mine that says, what you appreciate appreciates.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So as she appreciates me, her appreciation for me appreciates. So she feels good about it. I feel amazing because I'm being appreciated because, she saw me when I did that thing. Right. And then, of course, when I'm asking, what could I have done differently for you? It gives her a chance to be honest. And hey, when we had this little blip on Tuesday, it made me XYZ or whatever, and then just zip it, listen.
Yeah.
The constructive feedback it's like the very ingredients to up level for the next week. Yeah. Right. So as I'm planning for the next week now, it's like, okay, she said I did these things well. She said I did these things not so well. And as I'm thinking about the things I want to do this week,
there it is. Yeah. I love it. All right, Chaz, we are coming up to the end of our time. I've got 2 questions I love to ask. Number 1, what's a book that you've read in the last 12 months that has really impacted you? Maybe you refer it a lot, you give it out a lot. What's that book?
Think and Grow Rich. I've read it, I think, in 2024. I've probably read it, I don't know, maybe 10 times.
Wow. Yeah, wow. I didn't realize you were reading it that much now. That's fantastic. Okay. Yeah. So Napoleon Hill, we'll definitely get that in the show notes. And then lastly, what's a piece of advice you wish you would have had 10 years ago?
I would say that I heard a phrase probably 2 years ago. I wrote it down on my board. I read it often. And it's this: life will get better and better forever and ever. And that's a belief. Of course, things along the way are going to, not work out, sure, in businesses or this or that. And there's always going to be ups and downs. But the mindset or the belief that, I've been created for amazing things. And I get to co-create amazing things, actually. Is a frame that nothing can shake me. It actually, what it does is it strengthens my faith, not just my spiritual faith, but my faith in like who I am, what my identity is, what's going to come against me. Just it's,
yeah, I love that.
It doesn't mean that things aren't going to work out, because I think the younger Chaz knew these things. I knew that, like, okay, fine, but like over the course of time, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah, I love it.
Good to go.
Yeah, what an excellent way for us to end Well, Chaz, brother, I appreciate your time. If somebody's interested in Gathering the Kings, how do they get connected there? And then also, how do they follow along with the show? How do they follow along with you?
Yeah, gatheringthekings.com. You can go there, fill out an application if you feel like, being in a community with entrepreneurs that are family oriented, down to earth, growth minded would be helpful to you. And then, of course, for our podcast, Driven to Win, you can find that on all places where podcasts are played. And, take a look at gatheringthekings.com or, YouTube or Facebook. We're active on all those places if you want to connect with us.
That's fantastic. Well, brother, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Thank you for leading the way that you do. I admire it, and I've been following along for a few years now. So I'm glad to call you a friend.
Yeah, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We all enjoy sledding. Everybody, thank you for joining us here on Market Mavericks. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Market Mavericks. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to take your own adventure to the next level. Don't forget to follow the show to keep up with our latest episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, share it with others who could benefit. And hey, if you know a market maverick who has a story that needs to be heard, please drop their name in the comments. We would love to bring their insights to the show. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and leading with purpose.